Good morning, historians. As many of you will know, I'm currently studying local history at the University of Leiria. Since I've got access to so many history resources that aren't readily available to the wider public, I figured I would change that by making this video. I should also point out that I will be choosing to use the more academically accepted BCE formatting of date, mostly due to wanting to avoid the religious or spiritual connections associated with other systems, but at the same time that's just how I learnt the years myself, so it's just easier to be honest. Welcome everyone to the history of the Republic of Hamartia, or Hamartia if you pronounce it the more rural way. Our story starts more than 16,000 years ago, during a time where what we now know as Hamartia was nothing more than a collection of independent settlements. With archaeologists in disagreement about their sizes, it's difficult to figure out their exact scale. Some argue that population estimates should range from the smallest settlements, including 100 or so people, and the biggest containing over 1,000. While others suggest that the smallest settlements likely had 500 at the least, with the biggest ones being more accurately described as small cities, with tens of thousands of residents. Our only evidence of their existence comes from ancient explorers' journals of early Eastern continental adventurers who first recorded life on the Western continent. These collection of settlements were named the Usakilo communities by the Easterners, and stone spearheads are the only physical evidence of their existence we really have. This period, known as the ideographic period of Hamartia, was ended when these communities were unified under the rule of a mysterious goddess depicted in cave paintings, usually alongside lioness disciples. This unified nation was called Udzvilesi Sakilm Sipo and grew to cover most of the western continent. It is also believed that the de facto leader who spoke on behalf of the goddess most of the time is an ancestor to our former royal family, including King Tori. When discussing the time unified by this goddess, we usually describe it as being split into two periods. The first is known as the unilateral period, lasting from 15,000 to 1000 before Common Era approximately. The second is known as the semi-unilateral period, lasting from 1000 to 700 BCE approximately. The following period is one of great destruction and is known as the Daegumsa period. Centuries of cultural progression have rendered the goddess nearly forgotten, and by -699 Udzvilesi Sakilm Sipo has split into 8 different nations. The biggest two are the OP-Bish Empire and the Kingdom of Zapkuli. At the very bottom of modern-day Hamartia, in the north of the OP-Bish Empire, a small settlement of Lenin feel like they are not suited to the empire as they exist as the only settlement of Lenin within it. In 657 BCE, the group's leader, their Lenin mayor named Hamamepalomi, begins a campaign for autonomy for his people, although this is widely ignored at first. This all stops though when the settlement is found to be lying on top of a major underground resource vein and the mayor creates a very lucrative mine with it. The emperor quickly realized that this newfound resource speciality from the Lenin could give them a platform and grounds to declare independence, sparking a potential domino effect from the whole region, and he could lose power. As such, in 657 BCE the OP-Bish Empire gives the Lenin settlement greater autonomy under Mepalomi as the Hamaric Duchy, but they remain part of the empire. Moving slightly further afield, in 651 BCE the kingdom of Zapkuli converts to the Zapkulic Confederacy, which is essentially a collection of mini-empires and kingdoms roughly the size of the average Grandisian county, overseen by the supreme leader. The various entities in the Confederacy war with each other frequently and lack most organization. In 646 BCE, as you probably know, the OP-Bish Empire collapses. However, the Hamaric Duchy remains mostly stable due to the previous government autonomy they had. Mepalomi's son is now Duke and the region is renamed to the Dukedom of Hamar. Lenin from the Dukedom are known as the ethnic Hamaric Lenin, and population estimates put the new state at roughly 30,000 strong. The Dukedom of Hamar commits several genocides across their territory, including the enslavement and slaughter of every single Goblin tribe and any other non-Lenin. Hamaric Lenin at this time becomes seen as the superior race of Lenin. The town of Sopli Zeniti is founded by the Duke to capitalize on the mining operations, and the population experiences a boom unlike any other seen before or since. If you are a male ethnic Hamaric Lenin here, then life is good. Sopli Zeniti grows to be in the top 5 largest cities on the continent and in the top 10 largest cities in the world, largely due to the massive potential for industry and jobs created by the town's resources. 640 years before the Common Era, the Dukedom of Hamar becomes the first officially democratic nation on the West continent due to the Duke being scared of revolution. The first referendum is held, and it is to decide what national flag the dukedom should use. Very superficial, yes, but it made the people happy. We only have a visual representation of the winning flag, that being this one shown now. but descriptions of the other candidate flags have been preserved too, with many modern-day interpretations of these potential flags being easily found today. Historians refer to the dukedom during the time after the vote as the Democratic Dukedom of Hammer, although no one alive at the time did this. By 608 BCE, it has become clear that elections are rigged though, and the same duke wins them every time. This being Hamartia Billyyy, the grandson of Hamartia. In a bid to improve his public perception, 607 sees Billyyy invading part of the Zapulic Confederacy, specifically a coalition between three states directly above the Democratic Dukedom of Hamar. They have a small military as most of their money goes towards scientific and magical progress. Billyyy wins and his public perception is improved, at least within the previous territory. In the new territory he is seen very negatively. So much so in fact, that one of the three states he took over rebels against him, so his forces wipe out anyone living there and make it illegal to enter the zone, cutting off those who survived the genocide from their heritage. As a result, we don't even know the name of the state or really anything about it, only that it was a terrible tragedy with countless deaths. Literally countless too. We have no idea how many people were killed. Only Hamric Lenin are allowed to vote at this time. Billyyy remains in power for 38 more years, all the while taking over more and more Zapulic territory. When the next duke eventually does succeed him in 569 BCE, he successfully takes over Bambiskshvili, the largest city on the continent with a population of 1.3 million at the time. Following this victory, he reorganizes the dukedom into the First Hamartian Empire with himself as emperor and Bambiskshvili as its capital. Eventually, the First Hamartian Empire grows to cover the entirety of the northern part of the continent and controls 4 of the top 10 largest cities in the world. The Daegumsot period reaches its conclusion in 259 BCE though, as Emperor Theodosius attempted to solve a few organizational problems caused by the empire's massive population. Adding to this, Lenin make up 12% of the population but hold 85% of the wealth. Theodosius splits the empire into north and south. He would control both halves but would delegate work to a leader of his selection. The first of these delegated leaders were as follows: the Shu Lenin Harold Mercatius leading the north, and the Hamric Lenin Samipo Kuachaki leading the south. We often refer to this process being one of the earliest forms of dissolution in Hamartian land. Thusly begins the Gamachi period. 10 years later, in 249 BC, a civil war breaks out between the two sides. This could be a whole essay in itself, but ultimately after many years of fighting, the First Hamartian Empire dissolves into the Kuachaki Kingdom, Superior Mercatia, and the Licentian Kingdom. After this, relative peace follows. It wouldn't last though, as in 187 BCE in a town in the Kuachaki Kingdom called Lomi Biskalaki, Benedictus Chad returned from an adventure with a fancy new large spear and challenged the governor of the town to a duel to the death. This with the condition that the winner would gain control over the town. Benedictus wins of course, and the public begin to see him as the new governor. However, the king does not agree, instead seeing this as an act of treason, and has Benedictus sentenced to death. The people, though, protest and manage to save his life, leading to Lomi Biskalaki declaring independence. The town is immediately assaulted by Kuachaki forces. Unfortunately, Benedictus' wife and daughter are killed in the attacks. Benedictus forms the Lenin rebel group, or as the Kuachaki kingdom calls them, the Lomi Bis insurgency, and the civil war begins. This fight would last almost 200 years, with the Chad dynasty leading the rebels for the whole time. Strangely, any daughters born into the Chad family at this stage always died before their fathers, never having children of their own. The war comes to a close in the year +10, or 10 CE, as rebels gain total military control over the western side of the kingdom, and the remaining members of the Kuachaki kingdom flee east and form the kingdom of Maori. Bambiskshvili is the last area to be claimed, so the rebels completely isolate it from the rest of the kingdom. The population is forced to farm their own food, but there is not enough, and the population of the once largest city on the continent halves in just 10 years. Lomi Biskalaki is renamed to Liria and proclaimed as the capital of the Second Hamartian Empire. In the year +20, Bambiskshvili is given independence as a city-state in a peace declaration with the former Kuachaki kingdom. This event is used to signify the beginning of the contextual age. Emperor Wilhelmi Chad dies in 93 CE as the first emperor of the Chad dynasty, and the first to die peacefully surrounded by loved ones. 410 CE marks the beginning of the end to the Second Hamartian Empire. The Alp Society and the Salmon Republic declare independence from Hamartia, which is accepted by the emperor at the time as he didn't want another war. In 412, Krylia, formerly known as the Licentian Kingdom, invades Lyria. The emperor refuses to leave his city though and defends it to his last breath. He is ultimately killed by this act. His daughter Elvan's Chat takes over as empress. She is the first female ruler of Hamartia and known as a total badass. A great war follows, lasting only 4 years, but with major consequences and unimaginable casualties, particularly for the goblin tribes, who were used as essentially slave labor by the Hamartian Empire. Hamartia accepts help from Maori in order to win. This victory is bittersweet though, as now the empire is in anarchy, with villages being ran by chieftains and the governmental system essentially being a more extreme version of the Zapkulik Confederacy. This anarchy lasts for half a century until 465, when Volodymyr Chad forms the Kingdom of Lyria and the southeastern provinces unify into the Hamarti's Democratic Republic. The newly formed Queendom of Bambiskshvili also begins expanding its territory as well. These three factions once again go to war, this time ending with the modern-day Hamartian borders controlled by Volodymyr's son Terence under the Kingdom of Lyria. Terence Chad becomes known as King Terence, and the name Chad goes widely unused, although it is still used by the royals, as evidenced by our favorite clown king, Tory Chad. By 490, King Terence wants the war to be over, so he renames the Kingdom of Lyria to the Kingdom of Hamartia in order to ceremonially include the rest of his territory in the kingdom, not just exclusively the capital. He also separates the kingdom into smaller sectors and places a count inside each one to govern semi-independently to prevent civil war. Then he signs a coalition deal with Maori, which means they share a military to prevent international war too. This being with the aim of preventing war from both internal and external factors. The signing of this deal signals the end to the contextual period and the dawn of the Reformation period. In the year 500, industry booms in Hamartia, resulting in higher quality of life and a drastic population increase. This has the unfortunate side effect of making food become increasingly scarce. To combat this, several hundred agriculturally centered villages are founded in order to provide enough food for the growing city populations. These villages include dramatisaione, alliteratory, allegory, metaphory, and even commentary. Hamartia legalizes homosexuality in 573, much to the disapproval of Maori. By 575, Hamartia has become one of the richest nations in the world, producing high-quality magic items, armor, weaponry, and tools. Gold mining is a large industry in Hamartia. In 601 CE, the prince next in line to the throne, Barbary Chad, flees Lyria and has a secret family, something which the public is not made aware of at the time. Now we're getting into very recent history, so I'll skim over this bit to get to the end. In 642 CE, Krylia annexes Castile, a historical city, and Maori lead into coalition troops to begin fighting against Krylia. This war continues to rage for many years, resulting in conscription policies being implemented to make up for a worsening military situation. The aforementioned prince's son, Tory Chad, is located by the royal family after being one of these individuals forced into military service through conscription. He and his companions save the life of King Arthur's brother who, with the permission of the king himself, allows Tory and his son Prince Oswald to duel for the honor of being crowned king. Tory wins and the public welcome him as their new king. However, in 643, Tory makes like his father and leaves Lyria as an adventurer. While on the adventure, he reorganizes the Kingdom of Hamartia into the Republic of Hamartia, which is led by the Prime Minister, not the king. Thankfully though, a combination of Maori's force and the Prime Minister's tactician skills leads to victory against Krylia and the reclamation of Castile, officially ending the war. Then in 649, despite Tory creating a democratic society, a large portion of the government, and the public for that matter, see his adventuring during wartime as a negligence of duty. He is trialed for this and several war crimes and sentenced to exile from Hamartia. Nowadays, the public doesn't see Tory too kindly, and as I did earlier, refer to him as the Clown King. There was even a campaign by some known as the Bring Oswald Back campaign, although many people remain steadfast in their belief that Oswald really isn't any better than Tory. And that essentially brings us up to the modern day, so with that, I very much hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. I've been History Hamartian #1, and this was the complete history of our glorious Hamartian Republic.